Nintendo released their newest home and handheld console this week, and the launch seems to be going rather well. So well, in fact, that the collective internet has been reduced to putting Nintendo Switch cartridges in their mouth to see if they taste bad. The relatively successful launch is no doubt due largely to the reception of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, itself impressive considering the game is slitting sales with its Wii U progenitor. And if, for some reason, you want to use your Switch to play anything other than Breath of the Wild, you do have a few, but not terribly many options. For physical releases, the launch lineup consists of 1-2 Switch, which amazingly wasn't bundled with the system, Super Bomberman R, and the most recent versions of Just Dance and Skylanders. Over on the eShop, Nintendo offers a handful of titles, mostly ports of games that can already be found on the PC. But if you're looking for something to fill up the system's needlessly tiny 32GB hard drive, there are a few options. And speaking of PC, if you didn't pick up Zelda, then you may want to head over to the Overwatch PTR and try out Overwatch's newest character, Arisa. This four-legged robot is the game's first new tank character and pushes forward with some neat abilities, starting with a portable barrier that can be placed in front of friendly bastions to protect them without interfering with their view. Her primary weapon is fairly powerful, doing decent damage at medium range, which is more than most in the tank class can say. Her secondary fire is handy as well. Right-clicking fires a harmless green ball of energy, but right-clicking a second time pulls any nearby enemy into that green energy ball, which is handy for forcing enemy bastions out of position. Arisa can also give herself a short defense buff that reduces incoming damage and makes her immune to crowd control effects. Finally, her ultimate ability lets her put down a device that gives any nearby teammate a line-of-sight damage boost. This device can be destroyed, so positioning it will be important to keep friendly characters in line of sight without exposing it to too much enemy fire. And speaking of enemy fire, if you think Bastion has been a little overtuned since his recent rework, you aren't alone. The minigun robot went through some changes in the last patch, increasing his survivability and power at short and medium range while reducing his long-range effectiveness. Part of these changes included a new passive ability that gave him 35% damage reduction while in tank and sentry form, which may have made him a little too tanky. On the PTR, that damage reduction has been knocked down to 20%. And of course, Overwatch isn't the only game getting some new content. Blizzard announced this week that they're adding a new co-op mode for Starcraft 2 called The Dead of Night, based on the popular Left to Die arcade game. In the new game mode, players will have to withstand waves of attacks from infested Terrans during the night while venturing out to burn out their bases in the daylight cycle. Meanwhile, it's been a while since I've covered a new Heroes of the Storm character, but as a dedicated Protoss player, Probius may just get me to start paying attention to the game again. Probius can warp in up to 2 pylons that grant vision and regenerate mana for his abilities. Within the power fields of the pylons, Probius can warp in photon cannons that attack on their own for 11 seconds. Along with the photon cannons, his primary attack is Disruption Pulse, which deals strike-through damage, and he can cast Warp Rift, which slows enemies down. Hitting the Warp Rift with the Disruption Pulse causes it to explode for extra damage. For an ultimate ability, Probius can do a pylon overcharge to turn his pylons into extra turrets or create a null gate, which slows and damages enemies. And since this is something of a Blizzard roundup anyway, I should mention that Hearthstone's latest expansion was also announced this week. Journey to Ungoro will introduce 135 new cards centered around the dinosaur-filled land of Ungoro Crater. The new mechanic introduced in this set will be the Adept keyword, which lets you select from one of 3 randomly chosen other abilities upon activation. Over in Star Wars news, good news for the Rebellion. Star Wars Rebels has been confirmed to return for a 4th season. The show is currently wrapping up its 3rd season and will continue on with Season 4 starting later this year. And that's not it for Disney-owned tunes. This week, Disney put out the first look at the new DuckTales. The animation looks great, the voices are great, and the sneak peek gives you a look at the fleshed-out personalities for the younger ducks. I have to admit, I didn't expect a nihilistic Louie.
What's Donald really like? Who's the evil triplet?
Louie.
Over in Disney's movies, Marvel put out a 3rd trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, showing off a lot of action without giving up much plot, which, let's be honest, probably matches what we'll get in the movie anyway. And if Marvel's space pirates aren't piratey enough for you, there's also a new trailer for Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales. Will this be the movie that redeems the Pirates franchise after the lackluster 4th installment? Maybe, maybe not. Either way, Disney is promising this is Jack Sparrow's last adventure, so let's hope he goes out on a good one. For movies closer to release, hitting theaters this week is Kong Skull Island. A bevy of big-name stars take on the greatest of the great apes and a host of other monsters in this revival of the King Kong franchise. I don't know if the movie will be good, but I do know I want it to do well enough that Warner Bros. And Legendary don't pull back on a King Kong vs. Godzilla. Over on television, ABC has an interesting take on sci-fi drama. Time After Time, based on the 1979 novel of the same name, has H.G. Wells going up against Jack the Ripper after the serial killer steals his time machine and ends up in the present day. Also on ABC, The Catch is back for its second season. I haven't seen the show, but the premise of a private eye and a con man playing a game of cat and mouse while dating each other does have its appeal. And speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, if you can't wait for the movie, Season 2 of the animated series starts this week on Disney XD. And finally, Jack is back. After 12 years off the air, Samurai Jack returns to Adult Swim for a 5th season of post-apocalyptic adventure, which is probably news I should have mentioned before now, but it never really seemed to work out that way. In video games, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 comes out this week. It's not really a new game, just the base game bundled with all the DLC, but if you don't have it yet, then I suppose this would be the version to get. For JRPGs, we have Atelier Firis, The Alchemist, and the Mysterious Journey. Seems like the first chapter of this game just came out a few weeks ago, which makes me wonder how long these games are. Danmaku Unlimited 3 is just one of the shmup games that came out this week, but it is the prettier of the two. And Blink is a neat-looking puzzle platformer where the gimmick is that you can shift forms to stand on arbitrary sources of light. Finally, on the PS4 this week, there's Nier Automata, a slick action shooter about robot girls fighting giant robot monsters while wearing Victoria-era clothing and blindfolds. Wrapping things up with this week's CGBros video, Black Holes by Noodles Studio is a strange but funny look at the mission to Mars.
I'd heard about nervous breakdowns due to flan depressurization, but the fact that Houston would lump me in the same categories as those intergalactic amateurs was both hurtful and suspicious. I became wary of the melon.
And that brings us to this week's awesome video, coming from Ryan Reynolds himself, who just released a short look at what you can expect from Deadpool 2.
Not on my watch, motherfucker.
That's everything for this week, so what do you think of the Nintendo Switch, Zelda, or Bastion? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe, pass this video around to your friends, and have a great week!